After I was kidnapped, my mom went crazy for missing me, and my dad never forgave my sister who took me away until the day he died. My sister, crushed by guilt, ended her life with sleeping pills in the bathtub. My soul tried to save her, but when I opened my eyes, I was back in the year I was kidnapped. My uncle took the money from the human trafficker, smugly saying, "Make sure to sell my niece far away, so she doesn't have a chance to come back." It wasn't until after I died that I remembered I had a loving family. My parents were open-minded and adored my sister and me. They never preferred boys over girls. When I was sold to a remote mountain village, I ended up with a high fever that left me slow and dull. The family that bought me kept me in a cellar for over 10 years. Once I had a boy, they used me as a sacrificial offering and burned me alive. When I returned home as a spirit, I found out that my parents had passed away not long after I disappeared. My sister never stopped looking for me. She searched for years without any news until her eyes became lifeless. She would often sit and cry silently while holding a family photo. "Dad, Mom, I can't hang on anymore. If only my little sister hadn't gone missing. If I hadn't let go of her hand," she said while swallowing a whole bottle of pills. "No," I screamed, trying to save her, but my hands went right through her. Overwhelmed with anger and sadness, I thought, what do I have to do to save my family? At that moment, a bright light flashed in front of me, and I suddenly lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a truck filled with cigarette smoke. I stared at the guy in the leather jacket. It was him, that awful trafficker. He pulled out a wad of cash from his bag, using an old lighter to light a cigarette for the guy in front of him. "Hey Mike, count the cash, $300. Wasn't it supposed to be 2 goods? Why is it just this little one?" With the smoke swirling around, I saw my uncle's face, looking so plain and honest. He frowned a bit. "My older niece went inside, and there are people in there. The younger one is easier to trick." A chill ran through me, and I almost started crying. Just $300 and my family's whole life was gone. If things had gone a bit differently, my sister might have ended up just like me. I couldn't figure out why my uncle would do this. My dad was so good to him, even included him in business deals like family. My dad saved him from drowning once, and this is what he did in return, a backstabbing snake. The trafficker voiced my inner question. "Mike, what made you sell your niece? Aren't you afraid your brother will find out?" He spit on the ground outside, clearly annoyed. "Who's gonna know if we don't tell? Back in the day, we were both struggling, and now he's doing well. He wouldn't even lend me $1,000. Those girls can't carry on the family name. My son's my real legacy, and he wouldn't help him buy a house. Let's see who sticks around for him when he's gone." The trafficker laughed, giving a thumbs-up, gutsy move. "I'll sell these girls, and he'll have to raise my son," my uncle said, proud of himself. He reminded the trafficker again, "Make sure to sell her far, far away, so she can't come back." Because of that sentence, I was sold to a remote area in another province, and I never saw the sun shine again. This time around, I was going to make sure they paid dearly. Though I was still drugged, I memorized locations along the way, and looked for a chance to escape. In the truck with me was a boy, sweet and innocent looking. He was probably kidnapped too. The truck stopped on the side of a road in a town. A woman in a headscarf asked cautiously, "Got any boys this time?" The trafficker Mike quietly glanced around, holding up one finger. "Yeah, 1,000. The woman breathed a sigh of relief, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Deal." After handing over the money, she turned, revealing a basket on her back. "Put the boy in here." In that moment I saw my chance. I struggled to my feet, clutching the woman's sleeve. "Mom, take me too, please. I don't want to leave my brother." I had to swallow my fear and pride to get back to my family. The woman looked away, but I saw her soften a bit. As the boy woke up, he played along without giving me away, crying and calling for his sister. Mike seized the opportunity. "Might as well buy her too. She can help out, only $500. Your husband's done me favors. What do you say, Lily?" The woman agreed, and I was placed in the basket as well. She covered us tight with cloth, and maybe because we seemed so docile, she left us unattended when she went to the restroom. "You two stay put. There are plenty of kidnappers around here," she warned. Once her footsteps faded, I shook the boy awake, whispering, Do you want to go home? He nodded quietly. Then stick close and don't make a sound. I'll get us home. But if you make a peep, you're on your own. I put on a fierce face. Once out of the basket, we ran into the crowd quickly. We couldn't go to the police. This town was sketchy, and might be in with the traffickers. I couldn't risk it. At the bus station, I used my last dollar to buy 2 bus tickets. Back then, you didn't need an ID to travel, but the ticket seller looked puzzled seeing kids like us traveling alone. I held onto the boy's hand tight and beamed up at the seller. We're going to see our dad in the county. He's picking us up. In the county, we had no money left for the train, but we had to reach the city. So I dirted my face and begged. When the boy's stomach growled, I saw his longing eyes, but he didn't say he was hungry. I was starving too, but we had to endure. We'd be home soon. When hunger was unbearable, we dug through trash for leftovers. Finally, with enough money for tickets, I stayed close behind a couple who boarded, pretending to be their kids. As we stepped onto the train, I saw Lily and a group of people rushing into the station. She was shouting, "My child is missing. That's my child." As she was talking, she came running over to pull us off the bus. A few hands behind us were trying to push us down. Kids shouldn't run around. Go home with your mom. I immediately panicked, wondering if we were really trapped. Images of my mom holding my clothes like a madwoman, and dad with all white hair flashed in my head. Determined, I bit down hard on the woman's hand pulling at my collar, clung to the railing, and yelled out, "You're lying. That's not what my mom looks like. Help, they're trying to kidnap me." The woman screamed in pain and slapped me, the sound echoing sharply. Her accomplice came up and kicked me in the stomach. I was sent flying across the carriage, curled up in pain. The onlookers were indifferent, not looking to intervene. I vaguely saw someone next to me trying to stand, but a companion held them back, softly advising, "It's their family business, why get involved? No need to be a do-gooder." My mind spun, and my scalp was yanked. The accomplice, speaking in a thick accent, asked Lily, "What do we do with this girl?" Suddenly, a small figure rushed over and hugged me tightly. Baby cried, "No, you can't take my sister." Lily picked him up, joy flickering on her face. "Let's go home with Mom." The taste of blood in my throat jarred my nerves awake. I raised my eyes and shouted with all my strength, "Do you even know our names? My mom loves me and would never hurt me like this." "You're lying." Several people started focusing on us. A few passengers stood up, blocking the train door. "Are they really kidnappers?" The woman looked around, hesitated for a moment, then retreated a few steps and said, "This girl is from my husband's first marriage. She's not sharp and often runs away." Given the prevalence of stepmothers mistreating children, this explanation soothed most people's suspicions. As long as it wasn't kidnapping, they didn't want to get involved. Just then, a voice as melodious as a canary called out, "Then why is the child in your arms having an asthma attack? And you haven't even noticed? You're still covering his face." A young girl stood there in a white blouse, with her hair in braids, her voice strong and confident. "I have reason to suspect you're not their mother." Sure enough, when baby was rescued, his face was abnormally flushed, his chest heaving, his mouth slightly open, having difficulty breathing. Lily and her accomplice tried to make a scene, but the conductor called for security, and they were escorted out. We were saved. As the train started with a humming sound, a weight lifted off my heart. I crawled over to the young girl, tugged at her pant leg. "Please help him." "Don't worry," she nodded, opening a first aid kit she'd brought along, starting to treat baby. The conductor set me down on an empty seat, gently wiping the blood from my mouth with a tissue. "Does it hurt? Your face is swollen." "No, it doesn't," I replied. Those were the marks of fighting back against evil, and a symbol of defending my destiny. "Little one, do you know where your home is?" "Yes," I answered softly. "How could I not? That's the home I long for day and night, even when I was confused and long after I passed away in my past life. All I remembered was wanting to go home. Unfortunately, back then it was too late to reunite with my family. Thankfully, in this life, I can finally make the journey back home." I turned my head, looking at the scenery outside the train window, tears dropping instantly. "Dad, Mom, you have to wait for me to come back." The young girl in braids is a medical student returning from visiting her family and happened to be caught up in this farce. When I asked her why she believed me, she smiled, dimples appearing on her cheeks. Her presence seemed to radiate a gentle light. What if, she said. I was just thinking, what if? If it's a misunderstanding, you apologize, it's no big deal. But if it's real, I'm saving more than just you. I'm saving a broken family. I study to save lives, and this is one way to do that. Thank you, I hugged her, like embracing my future self. Since then, the first ray of light shone into my gloomy life. When the train stopped at the station, she got off too. She seemed a bit surprised. What a coincidence, are you from S City too? No, my home isn't here, babies, I don't know, I answered politely. Where are you heading now? I can take you there. I hesitated, feeling I shouldn't trust anyone right now. The girl in braids noticed my caution and chuckled, pulling out a student ID from her bag. See, nothing to fear. I'm just worried you two might get lost again. And how worried your family would be. She was busy, so she dropped us off at our destination and hurried away. Before leaving, she patted my messy head and gave us some pastries. Safe travels, little one. I pressed my lips tightly, feeling a mix of emotions. In this world full of bad people, there are good ones silently saving this damaged world. So we safely reached the police station. Because I could clearly state my home address, they quickly registered it. But baby was different. He seemed not to have learned how to talk yet, only calling out sister all the way. When anxious, he'd bow his head and bite his fingers, leaving no clues. Officer Sue, who was taking our statements, sighed. The older one's easy, but what about the little one? The boy looked at me innocently, his big, watery, black eyes showing confusion. Sister. Reason told me I shouldn't speak up now. Going home was the priority. Everything else could delay me. I stared at him, then told Officer Sue, Uncle, please take us home together. If there's news about his family, they can pick him up from mine. All right, you're already here, he said. A little longer won't hurt. To prevent other kids from getting abducted, I described the kidnapper to the officer. He was surprised by my clarity. You remember all this? Just a bit more, and I'd never see my parents again. I clenched my fists, looking down to hide the hate in my eyes. We eventually made it back home. Standing in front of the door adorned with the character for fortune, I suddenly felt a pang of nerves as I neared home. Considering my former life, it's been over 10 years since I've seen Mom and Dad, right? I mustered up the courage and twisted the handle, only to find the door tightly shut with a thin layer of dust on the handle. The neighbor next door heard the noise and peeked out, asking, Who's there? Apparently, the family went to the countryside to visit relatives and haven't returned yet. During this time, they must be endlessly searching for me in the place where I went missing. According to my sister, Mom would stand on the street holding my photo, asking passers-by if they'd seen me. Even if she went mad in the end, she'd still grab people asking, Have you seen my little daughter? She has a round face and big eyes about this tall. I miss her so much. Dad couldn't focus on his budding business anymore. His graying hair fell out in clumps, and he slept at the train station, afraid of missing my return one day. In the 3rd year of my disappearance, Mom couldn't bear the pain and passed away. That same November, Dad lay on a hospital bed, turning his head away, repeating with his dying breath, You must find your sister, bring her home. Losing our 2 most important family members in 1 year left my sister in tears. My uncle took advantage and took over our house, throwing my sister out in the snow. It was then that his true nature revealed itself. It was late, but I couldn't wait to stay the night, and rushed back to the country home without a pause. Years later, I often felt grateful that I made it back in time. The country roads were muddy, and by 3 or 4 in the morning, most lights were out except for one. Getting off the car, I stood outside the brick stone walls, clearly hearing that voice I despised. Bro, I found a way to get your niece back, but it takes $10,000 to smooth things out. Once you pay up, they can find her. Dad chuckled bitterly. I ain't lying, if I had 10 grand, I wouldn't hesitate. At that time, there weren't many wealthy families in the county. Where could he get that money? If the money's short, you could sell the factory and borrow some from folks around, couldn't you? The deceitful uncle feigned concern. I heard some traffickers break kids' limbs, forcing them to beg. You wouldn't want your niece ending up like that, right? The risks grow the longer you wait. Selling out people for money, what a cunning plan. Hearing this, I clenched my teeth in anger and pounded on the door, shouting loudly, "Dad, Mom, don't trust him." Several pairs of eyes fell on me, their weight almost pinning me in place. I stood there, staring at my family close enough to fill the blanks in my memories. It's so good, so good. Mom and Dad were still vibrant and colorful, not the cold, immobile black and white figures on the wall. In the next moment, I was enveloped in Mom's warm embrace. She held me tightly, sobbing uncontrollably, tears quickly soaking my head. "Sunny, my daughter, where have you been?" Mom's eyes were swollen. She must have cried every day. Dad's hair wasn't completely gray yet, though strands of silver had appeared, glaring even in the dim light. "Why'd you run away? Do you know how worried we've been?" He approached, raising his hand angrily. I thought Dad was about to smack me to let off steam, and closed my eyes in fear. But his hand fell gently, resting on my head like he was confirming if this was real. The always stern Dad's voice now trembled with emotion. "It's good you're back. It's good you're back." In just those few days, their backs seemed so hunched. The tightly wound emotions now surged in my heart. Swallowing all my bitterness and fear, I managed to say, "I'm home." After an entire lifetime, starting over anew, I was finally home. A few meters away stood a girl around my age. Her young face hadn't yet crumbled under guilt, only showing worry and unease for me. I ran over, grabbing her hand and softly calling, "Sister." Oh wow. She couldn't hold back anymore and broke into crying, choking out, "I'm sorry, Sunny. I shouldn't have let go of your hand and left first." "It's not your fault," I assured her, clearing a debt to my sister long overdue. I turned to the sneaky figure trying to slink away, and directly called him out. "Uncle, anything to say? If you don't, your niece will." Heh. The man stopped in his tracks, forcing an awkward smile. "Sunny coming back is wonderful news. Wasn't I just going to get a fire pan to ward off evil for you?" Mom and Dad snapped back to awareness, noticing something off in my tone. I tilted my head, feigning an innocent, naive expression. "So why was Uncle sitting with the traffickers, saying he wanted to sell Sunny into the mountains?" My uncle's usually honest face instantly turned a mix of colors. He shouted defensively, "What nonsense are you spouting, girl? How dare you smear your uncle's name?" He tugged at Dad's sleeve. "Brother, judge for yourself. Haven't I been running all around for you without a single complaint?" Dad remained silent, staring at Uncle like he couldn't believe the brother he had treated so kindly would sell his daughter. Mom also looked at me, crouched down, and asked gently, "Sunny, did you maybe see it wrong?" "No," I declared, emphasizing each word. "Uncle also said he wanted to sell Sister, so you and Dad could raise his kids. A kid couldn't come up with such things on their own." As soon as those words left my mouth, Dad's face turned dark as coal. He punched Uncle squarely in the face, grabbed his collar, and lifted him high. "Mike, haven't I been good to you over the years? Never withheld a single bite when there's food. Back when you wanted to go to high school, and we couldn't afford it, I dropped out to support your schooling. And this is how you repay me?" Uncle, shorter in stature, couldn't fight against my big, strong dad. Uncle spat blood, and his eyes filled with venom. "Who wants your charity? You couldn't handle school yourself, nothing to do with me." In fact, Dad's grades were better than his. Seeing this, Uncle no longer bothered pretending, grumbling all his grievances, including the borrowed money. He got so worked up he yelled out, "You should have stayed in the mud. Why do you get to strike it rich? It should have been me, Mike, who deserved it. And what's so special about those two girls? They can't hold a candle to my son. You'd rather buy them a house than do anything for my son." My mom got furious. She rushed over, slapped him twice, and even cursed, "What does your son have to do with us? I think you've lost your mind." Right then, I heard an elderly voice from inside. "Enough." It was Grandma, who was rarely seen. She walked out, holding my half-asleep cousin, and scolded my dad, eldest. If you had lent him the money, he wouldn't have taken a loan. He only made a small mistake. What do you gain by being so harsh? Or are you really choosing these two little girls over your only brother? Small mistake? That was laughable. I wanted to say something, but my sister pulled me back. She shook her head at me and whispered, "Grandma's fierce. She'll hit you for talking back." Dad looked disappointed. He stopped what he was doing and said coldly, "He was going to sell my daughter. Your own granddaughter. How is that being a brother? It's like an enemy. Girls can't carry on the family line." Grandma smirked and started shuffling over to help my uncle up. "Sell them if you must. If you can't have a boy, raising my son will do." My son clapped along. "Sell those lousy girls. They're all mine." He clearly knew what was going on. The old folks favoring boys over girls is understandable, but this is just over the top. Dad's her child after all. Why does she favor my uncle so much? Maybe he felt backed up. With his face beaten to a pulp, Uncle snorted, "If I don't get my $1,000, I'll never call you brother again." Dad usually cares a lot about family, so he feels he can get away with anything. Mom seemed to think Dad might give in too. She threw down a strong word, picked up my sister and me, and was about to leave. "John, if you forgive him, go by yourself. Who needs you as a brother?" Dad panicked, stomped his feet, and chased after us. "Honey, let's go home." After we got out, they noticed a kid sitting quietly on a rock by the entrance. "Whose kid is this? Out so late?" "All right." I patted my forehead and explained, "Dad, Mom, this is Honey. He might need to stay with us for a while." The boy's sweet little face turned shy, his eyes following me without looking away. Once back at our hometown house, I gave a careful account of what Honey and I encountered. But how could they not know? For two kids yet to understand the world, escaping the clutches of traffickers meant facing unimaginable struggles. Mom got all teary again, my poor child. Clumsily, I wiped her tears with a tissue. "It's fine, Mom. Can Honey stay with us for now?" Would my parents feel I was overstepping? After all, another mouth to feed means more expenses. But no, they praised me instead. "Sonny is a kind-hearted child," Mom and Dad happily said. "Ever since you were gone, not a moment passed without us hoping you'd come back. Honey's parents are surely waiting for him too." Dad patted my head and concluded, "Let Honey stay with us for now. And keep an eye out for any news of a missing kid nearby." Even Sis said, "I'll take care of my little brother and sister." Having gone through the same pain, they hope to provide shelter for other broken families too. Doing a little can help more children find their way home. Seeing my family fully supporting me, I felt warmed and determined, while my hatred grew for the person who caused all our misery. Everyone despises child traffickers nowadays. I spread the word about Uncle's dealings with them, and many parents searching for their lost kids came looking for him, giving him a good beating, demanding to know where their kids were sold. At first, Uncle denied it, but eventually confessed. He truly was involved in arranging things. In our village, most families are somewhat related. Everyone despised him now. Uncle's reputation was shot. People would throw rotten eggs and leaves at his house daily, and even smashed up his walls. People went to the village head, hoping to get rid of him, afraid he'd lay a hand on their kids too. Driven out of the village, Uncle could only kneel at our doorstep, begging my dad to take him back. "Brother, I was wrong. Please forgive your little brother." Dad opened the door and gave him another beating. "Get lost." The next day, Grandma also kneeled outside, wailing and cursing us as ungrateful. It annoyed the neighbors immensely, so I sent word to people who handled debts nearby. Soon, a group of men in black came, dragging Uncle away like he was a rag doll. Furious, he confronted Uncle. "You think you could hide from me, Mike? Why aren't you still hiding now? When will you pay me the $1,000 you owe? You're said to have sold your niece? How could you not have the money?" He sneered, raised his leg, and kicked. "I might not be a good guy, but I hate scum like you trafficking kids. Because I returned in time this life." Uncle didn't manage to trick any money out of Dad. Unable to repay his debts, he got his leg broken and a finger chopped off, living like a rat in hiding. After a while, I finally got a call from the city police. The traffickers and Lily had been caught. "Young Sonny, we'd like you to come and identify the suspects involved in this kidnapping case." This time, unlike when I was apprehensive, I had Mom and Dad with me. Finally, under the suspect list, I wrote down Uncle's name. What was his, he won't be missing out on. They say the person caught was a key figure. Following the clues from him, the police busted several trafficking dens in time. Inside, besides kids, they found many young women too. Perhaps this is the butterfly effect. I saved my fate and indirectly changed the outcome for many others. Knowing Uncle was arrested, Grandma was frantic like ants on a hot pan. The old lady stumbled upon some supposed method and came demanding that my parents sign a letter of forgiveness. Not only that, she turned the house upside down, stuffing her pockets with any food she could carry and ruining what she couldn't. You guys are Sonny's guardians. Sign this, and Mike will be fine. We refused, and Grandma pulled out Great-Uncle's tablet from her pocket and slapped it across Dad's face. You ungrateful beast. Have you forgotten how your uncle fell off the mountain all those years ago? If he hadn't pulled you up, you'd be dead in a ditch. And Mike is his only child. How could you not protect him? Dad looked up, his anger boiling. Yes, Uncle saved me back then, and I spent years repaying that debt, giving Mike everything. But there's no excuse for threatening my kid. Mom patted him on the shoulder, trying to calm him down. My sister and I exchanged a glance, and then held on to Dad's hand. I called out softly, Grandma, meeting her venomous stare. I'm curious. You're Dad's mom, yet why are you siding with others to harm your own child? Mom loves Sonny, but Grandma doesn't seem to love Dad at all. Her eyes flickered with guilt for a second, but the usually sharp-tongued woman didn't argue. Instead, she slammed the agreement on the table, threatening, Humph, cut the nonsense. If this isn't signed in 3 days, I'll cause a scene at your workplace, at school, and let everyone see what ungrateful descendants you are. After that, she slammed the door and left. This reaction just confirmed something fishy was going on. To figure out what was happening, we went back to the countryside over the weekend. This time, though, there was no place to stay. Our house was trashed. Luckily, the older folks knew the whole story. The elderly lady next door, who lost a granddaughter last year, hated our uncle so much she was ready to spill everything. When we asked, she told us everything. Right away, she dropped a bombshell. That Mike, he's your mom and your uncle's kid. Mom and Dad were dumbfounded. Same here. I expected drama, but not this level of drama. The old lady adjusted her glasses and pointed at Dad. You've had a rough life too. Your father couldn't have children, and one stormy day, they brought you home from who knows where. They said you were adopted, but who knows? Dad stood frozen for a long time, murmuring, no wonder Mom has always favored him. A puzzle from their youth solved many years later. Grandma tried to scheme, but it all backfired. She lost the last bit of affection Dad had for her, without even getting the signed agreement. When she went to cause trouble, the security guards, already tipped off, threw her out before she could step inside. The next time we saw Uncle was in court. He sat at the defendant's table, while I was at the spectator's table. When they handed down the life sentence, he started crying, regretful, shouting, I was young and didn't know better. Why such a heavy sentence? So what if I'm taking poor kids to wealthy families? And Lily cried out too, her face pale but her voice booming. I just wanted a son. What's wrong with that? After 10 years, my husband didn't want me anymore. The main offenders were sentenced to death. They started turning on each other, revealing terrible things the other had done. Many of the victims' families broke down in tears. They think they're victims, but what about the kids who got taken away? Or the parents who lost their children? I watched it all with a blank expression, not feeling the satisfaction of revenge, only relief that I still had a whole family. No demand, no crime. As beneficiaries of this heinous trade, they deserved every punishment they got. With Uncle out of the picture, and no more kidnapping drama, Dad's electronics factory picked right up. Part of the profits was used to print flyers placed on our products. Each flyer had pictures or information about missing children, and it read, Let's help bring more kids home. As interest grew, the impact of this kidnapping case grew wider, affecting places all over the country. Baby's family came around this time. They were elderly but spirited with silver hair. Seeing their grandson speak clearly again brought them to tears. Our baby can finally talk. But kids forget easily. Baby didn't remember them and, scared, hid behind me when he saw them. Over time and with my help, Baby slowly opened up and accepted the old couple. That's when I learned his family was wealthy, but his mom had passed. His dad was a big CEO who rekindled an old romance during his mother's pregnancy and openly cheated. When Baby was 3, his mom couldn't take it anymore and jumped off the roof. Watching his mom's death left Baby with mild asthma and autism, and he stopped speaking. His dad remarried quickly and ignored baby. His grandparents took him in. Recently, CEO dad offered to take baby out. But mid-trip, his mistress called. And he drove off, leaving baby alone at the amusement park. A lone kid is easy prey for traffickers. I can't clearly remember my past life's details or how things ended for baby. But uncle, now in jail, wasn't having it easy. The night baby and his family left, my sister came to my bed, hugging me and crying. She said she had a terrifying dream. In her dream, I never returned home. Everyone blamed her. Our parents believed uncle and grandma, gave away all their money, and owed huge debts, never learning where I was. Our parents were too devastated and eventually passed away, leaving her alone. Uncle took over the house. When I was found in the mountains, I was already in a small urn. She had no family left. Nightmares are just the opposite of reality. I comforted her, saying softly, Sonny's back. What happened in there won't come true. Unclear memories became sharp again. Yes, our fates have taken a new course. Years later, both my sister and I got into the universities we wanted. She went for criminal investigation, and I chose journalism. Baby went on to become a famous piano prodigy. On the day I was supposed to die at 18, I spent a lot of money hiring people to accompany me into the mountains. To outsiders, I said I was gathering news material, but in reality, I was going to carry out a plan of revenge. In that familiar village, there was regular ritual worship. They were backward, poor, and ignorant, and each household's wife was bought from traffickers. If they couldn't gather enough offerings, they would use women who couldn't have children. I was one of them in a past life. While they were absorbed in the rituals, I rescued all the women locked in the cellar. Who are you? What do you want? Without wasting words, I instructed the hired people to swap the villagers with the women on the altar. If you worship God so much, why don't you try offering yourselves to them? They writhed in the flames, cursing, and soon turned into wisps of black smoke. The sun rose. I took the hand of a dazed girl among them, warmly telling the other rescued women, you can go home now. May every lost child find their way home. And in the future, may we all have our own dreams and grow toward the sun. Add on. My name is Lucy, and I have a sweet little sister named Sunny. But when I was 8, I let go of my sister's hand to get some snacks, and when I came back, she was gone. Mom cried every day until she went blind and couldn't see me anymore. Dad blamed me until his dying day, begging me to bring my sister home. I promised I would, and spent my whole life trying to keep that promise. Not long after my parents died, I was kicked out of our house. That's when I realized my uncle was a wolf in sheep's clothing, hiding his rot beneath a facade of decency. I dropped out of school and worked odd jobs with what little savings I had. Being young, some shady factories only paid me half of a normal worker's wage. But I had no choice. I needed money to survive and to search for my sister. Every lead I got, I pursued, but it always ended in disappointment. Eventually, I met a decent boyfriend. He took me to his home deep in the mountains, and that's where, in a cellar, I found something that belonged to my sister, a stone bracelet that Mom bought for us when we were kids. I subtly asked around, and my boyfriend told me that they used to keep women there. Women bought by the village. If they misbehaved or tried to escape, they'd be chained and locked up till they were tame enough to be let out. Those who never complied were treated like livestock, burned alive in stone urns during ritual offerings. Is my sister one of them then? I suppressed my rage and sorrow, retrieved the urn containing my sister, gathered all the evidence. Then during another ritual, I poured poison into their cooking water, and burned the whole mountain down before I left. I buried the urn beside my parents' tombstone. I'm sorry. Wait a little longer for your sister to deal with the bad guys. Then we can reunite. My uncle and the traffickers from back then were arrested. They begged for mercy, claiming their youthful ignorance meant they'd made mistakes. But what about my sister? I asked. Did she make a mistake? She never even had a chance to grow up. You say you were ignorant when young. Then what did my parents do wrong to end up buried in cold ground at just 30-something? Each guilty person was sentenced to death. After doing everything I needed to, I returned to an empty room, lay down in a bathtub full of cold water, and washed down a bottle of sleeping pills. As my consciousness faded, I seemed to see a shadowy figure rushing toward me. Is my sister coming to take me home? If only time could go back. Your sister would give anything to bring you home. The end.